As we all know, China's vigorous development of electric vehicles in recent years is closely related to its goal of carbon neutrality. At present, China's electric vehicle market has taken the lead in the world. So, is its environmental problem solved? In today's video, let's talk about 3 of the most worrisome environmental issues in China and its corresponding solutions. Okay, let's take a look. 1. Air pollution. First on the list of environmental issues in China is air pollution. Since the beginning of its industrial expansion and economic boom in the late 1970s, which lifted 800 million people out of poverty and saw the country's GDP grow at an average annual rate of 10% for 4 decades, the quality of air has progressively deteriorated. Estimated to cause an average of 1.2 million premature deaths every year, China's poor air quality is primarily attributed to the rapid economic expansion the country experienced since 1979. Which resulted in a drastic increase in coal-powered industrial production and electricity demand, as well as an exponential rise in private vehicles. It is estimated that roughly 48% of Chinese CO2 emissions come from the industrial sector, with 40% from the power, mainly coal, and 8% from the transport industry. With an ever-increasing population, the demand for electricity has grown with no respite, leading to even more coal burning and worsened air standards. But air quality in China has consistently improved in recent years. Since 2018, major cities have seen an overall 21% reduction in annual PM2.5 concentrations, and in 2021, the capital city of Beijing met its own air pollution targets for the first time. President Xi Jinping argues that fighting pollution is one of his top priorities, labeling this environmental issue as one of China's 3 tough battles, along with reducing poverty and improving financial stability. The long-term strategy focuses primarily on carbon emission intensity reduction through the primary use of non-fossil fuel energy. In recent years, China has placed a very strong emphasis on clean energy such as wind and solar. The latest 5-year plan, one of the country's most important policy blueprints, has set out a new strategy involving investment in onshore clean energy technologies, transmission grid, nuclear, as well as offshore wind in the coastal region. With China being the world's most populous nation, tackling the impending pressures of urbanization, most notably air pollution, is especially crucial. To improve air quality in ever-expanding urban areas, the government is betting big on smart cities. Metropolises such as Beijing and Nanjing are already working on strategies to reduce pollution deriving from industries as well as traffic. They have adopted smart technologies to identify various pollutants and develop green infrastructure powered by renewable energy sources. 2. Water pollution. High on the list of environmental issues in China is water pollution. For decades, factories were able to discharge their wastewater into lakes and rivers across the country due to poor environmental regulations, weak enforcement, and the government's failure to crack down on polluting industries. However, significant progress has been made in recent years. The 13th 5-year plan in 2016 set specific goals for water consumption and water quality, aiming at reducing water consumption by 23% from 2015 levels by 2020. This includes upgrading urban sewage facilities, increasing rates of wastewater treatment, and forcing farmers to reduce the use of chemical fertilizers and insecticides in a bid to reduce contamination from agricultural pollutants. According to the 2020 State of Ecology and Environment report, most of the key targets set in 13 FYP have been met and exceeded, owing to the fact that within a very short period of time, the country managed to build more than 39,000 new sewage treatment facilities in 95% of municipalities and 30% of rural areas. To further improve water quality, the Chinese government funded the construction or renovation of nearly 80,000 kilometers of sewage collection pipeline network between 2021 and 2025. Despite surface water continuing to improve, groundwater quality still has a long way to go, with just 13.6% considered fit for human consumption, according to the report. water pollution still causes more than 100,000 deaths and economic losses of $1.5 trillion each year. This environmental issue is therefore something that China can no longer afford to ignore. 3. Food and water shortages. Besides pollution, water availability in China is also among the most worrisome environmental issues in China. It is exacerbated by the climate crisis, the effects of which considerably diminish the country's accessible water resources, triggering severe shortages. Despite being home to almost 20% of the global population, China has only 6% of the world's total freshwater resources. To make matters worse, water is unevenly distributed across the country, with 80% concentrated in South China, despite the north being the core of national development. In the three heavily industrialized northern provinces of Beijing, Tianjin, and Hebei, home to 130 million people, water available for human consumption is less than 184 cubic meters per person, well below the 500 cubic meter standard of water scarcity. Scientific consensus says that climate change is playing a key role in the water shortage in China. Increasing temperatures is one of the main factors exacerbating the crisis. On the one hand, glaciers in the Qinghai Tibetan Plateau, also known as the Third Pole, that have fed the Yangtze and Yellow rivers with glacial meltwater for thousands of years, have retreated by 82% and more than one-fifth of the ice cover has disappeared since the 1950s. According to Greenpeace, the shortage will become dramatically acute when these glaciers reach their peak water, meaning that the rate of water consumption surpasses water supply, something that might happen as early as 2030. On the other hand, rising temperatures have also impacted atmospheric circulation, making rainfall patterns unreliable and less frequent in northern and inland regions. Irregular rainfall has been the main culprit behind record-breaking droughts that have hit across the country in the last decade. Following an unprecedented 116-day drought occurring in the capital city between October 2017 and February 2018, China's southern megacities Guangzhou and Shenzhen were faced with one of the most severe droughts in decades. To tackle one of the most pressing environmental issues in China, the government developed several water schemes to boost water availability in dry regions. The most remarkable is the South to North Water Diversion Project. The plan is 50 years in the making, and involves infrastructure to divert nearly 45 billion cubic meters of water annually from the Yangtze River in the south to the dry north. While the $62 billion project is not expected to be fully completed before 2050, the east and middle routes, opened respectively in 2013 and 2014, are already transferring 20.9 billion cubic meters of water each year. Unsurprisingly, these recurring droughts are also heavily impacting agriculture and compromising crops. A 2020 study investigating the impact of these weather events on northeast China's two main crops between 1961 and 2017 found that during moderate drought years, 3.2% of maize and 10.4% of soybean yields were lost. However, during more severe droughts recorded in recent years, losses reached 21.8% and 14% respectively. Another huge issue affecting food security in China is desertification, a process by which natural and human causes reduce the biological productivity of drylands. Research shows that 27.4% of the country has undergone desertification, affecting about 400 million people. The entirety of China's agricultural production comes from just 7% of its land area, most of which is located in northern areas that are severely affected by land degradation. One of the government's main strategies to combat desertification is the Great Green Wall of China, a project that involves the planting of around 88 million acres of forests stretching about 3,000 miles, 4,828 kilometers, and as wide as 900 miles, 1,448 kilometers. The results have so far been satisfactory. Thousands of acres of moving dunes have been stabilized and the frequency of sandstorms nationwide fell by 1/5 between 2009 and 2014. Okay, that's all for today. See you next time.